And we are live, I think. We are testing out a new format here. It's not totally perfect yet, but let's see. We are live and I see some people in the chat already. This is our weekly overview and we are gonna see what's gonna happen. I can also, oops, audio. And then we are ready to rumble. Let's see. Can't do much here. Okay. Good. Let's discuss the week ahead and what happened last week, because it was a very eventful week for AI. And we will discuss Grok 4.5, ChatGPT Soul, and not to forget Muse, the new Meta frontier model that has been launched and has now led to the fourth entity entering the big race. And a lot of people don't take them seriously yet, but I told you a long time ago, 6 months ago, that Alexander Wang and his team at Meta should not be underestimated, and we actually saw great progress here. However, of course, not even close to Grok or the other two. But they made a dramatic leap. Let's jump right into it and see where we are at. Let's start with Tesla, because I know everyone is looking at Tesla. Let's look at the stock first before we jump into the thesis, what's going on. So you probably know Tesla jumping around like a crazy person. That is the month that we experienced here. It was very exhausting for Pioneer Alpha, but we managed to get through. So we had on June 22nd this massive crash to 375 for absolutely no reason. Then the run up for not much reason. Well, it was actually anticipated that the deliveries are very good, and they were excellent, blowing it out of the water, 480,000 cars delivered. And then, of course, once that news was out, a dramatic drop again for absolutely no reason. The market was also choppy, by the way. So a lot of that was due to the market, but Tesla behaved much worse than the market here. And then, of course, a giant snap back to 419. The stock is absolutely annoying and crazy right now. And then we slid down again, and now we're up again. So what does it all mean? What does it all mean? Because it's not about the past, it's about the future. Where are we going from here? And my thesis is very, very simple. I tweeted this. Here's a summary. Tesla might run up to the 420s, probably likely from here. We had 407. And if nothing happens, if we still don't see any Cybercap movements, prepare to trade in this range, the wider range, 435, 440, down to 370. That seems to be the range, but probably more tightly 420s and then back to 390s. Why do I think that? Because we have a bleeding problem here that Tesla is just waiting for these cybercaps. Maybe these news that are trickling out all the time about more and more cybercaps, more and more parking lots full of cybercaps, maybe that helps us, but it won't help much. I tell you that much, because the market is tired of this whole waiting thing. They need to see results now. So what I'm doing is, from a trading perspective, tactical trading, we want to be a little lightening up when we are going to the 420s and then doubling down at the 390s. Lightening up, of course, not too much, because that catalyst that we are all waiting for, that the cybercaps actually deploy, this can happen now any day. But it can also take another 6 months. I don't think 6 months, but another 3 months very easily. So no one knows. It can happen next week. It can happen in 2 weeks. It can happen in 1 month. It can happen in 2 months. No one knows. Now, my bias is more towards the front end, but you know my bias was wrong in June. My bias just gets doubled down because they have to do something with the cybercaps. But if there's one learning that you get when you invest and trade, then it is that if in doubt, nothing happens. Okay, if you think in weekly increments, and that's what we need to do with weekly puts, for example, short puts, you want to basically because even if Cybercap takes another 2 weeks and you trade this successfully to the 420s and then drop down to 390 again, you make so much money that it's worth it. Okay. So I have some medium range calls because I'm very bullish, or August calls. I might lighten up on them again if we get a little higher. And I will continue playing my short put game, a little less leverage, and lightening up around the 420s for the drop down. If we actually have escape velocity at some point, that's fine with me. I'm definitely above 100% exposure, even if I lighten up. So that's kind of happening here. That is the Tesla news. Should we go into the comments quickly if there's any Tesla questions? Let's see. Party time. Let's go. Brooks Crossman, love your show. Question: when the catalyst for Tesla comes to fruition, Robotaxi full launch or SpaceX merger, are you taking any profits? Brooks Rossman. I can't tell you that because that depends on a lot of things. Like, when is this happening? Why is it happening? You know, we might get a bull market now. We might deploy 1,000 Cybercaps and that thing goes to 700. Yeah, then I'm nervous because if we go to 600, 700, I need to see a real forcing function in full display. And if we just exuberantly getting there, well, then I might lighten up, yes. But if this is a drag and there's a bear market and we actually have 5,000 Cybercaps and we had 600, I'm absolutely not lightening up. So you have to calibrate that depending on what exactly is happening. That's why we need to, unfortunately, keep the show alive and see what's happening, because it's really 600 for Tesla can be overvalued and expensive, or it can be dramatically undervalued. Depends a little bit on what's going on. Hello from Quebec City, from Daniel Gong. I don't know, my French is not very good, but I love French, of course. Breaking news: Waymos need more LiDAR. Leisure real estate. Absolutely. I think Waymo can win this game if they would double the LiDAR sensors on each Waymo. I think that is the precondition for them to win. Because if you don't have a brain, it's like, imagine you don't have a brain, but someone gives you 4 eyes. You can beat any math contest. Okay? You can do better math if you see more light pixels, even if you're extremely dumb. And the same is true for self-driving cars. It is all a question of how many sensors you have. Neural nets, conscious understanding of the world is vastly overrated. It is all about the sensors. And that is why Waymo is ahead. But more LiDARs would push them over the finish line. Yes, StreetCat Zero, absolutely. New Jersey requires now LiDAR. Absolutely no corruption. This is just based on a politician's assessment of the technology, and they determined if you don't have LiDAR, you cannot be allowed in Jersey. Very smart. Leisure real estate, breaking news. Uber will be adding second driver to all rides. Exactly, that's another great thing. To increase safety, you could have a second steering wheel. It's like a plane. You have 2 steering wheels. You should have 2 steering wheels and 2 drivers. Total safety guaranteed. In New Jersey. Leonardo says, Tesla will back down again to 380 before it goes up to 450. Maybe. I've been consistently right these last 2 months. Yes, Leonardo, you're right until you're not. But yes, I am preparing for some back and forth. Because what's the worst thing that can happen? That we have a breakout, that Cybercap suddenly deploys? Well, then I switch strategy. For now, let's just pretend the range is in place. StreetCred Zero, hey, if Waymos are okay in New Jersey, but they are incapable of navigating without LiDAR, then why couldn't Tesla just install auxiliary solid state LiDAR, which wouldn't enable full funk either? I think New Jersey, we can just forget New Jersey for now. They should fix their corruption problem, and then we can revisit it. That's what I would say about this whole situation. Okay, I have to put you guys back here on the screen. Leisure said, I thought Tesla was just a car company. Exactly. LiDAR. Exactly. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. A lot of topic. Here is my feeling. I'm talking about my feelings today. I feel there's a sentiment shift in the market going on. Okay, a sentiment shift in the market, and with the market I mean the AI game, Micron Technologies, Nvidia, and also Tesla a little bit. Let's see how much Tesla actually does that. But Meta too. I actually initiated a large Micron Technologies position now after it dropped so much after these amazing earnings. Nvidia is my third largest holding now. Micron my second largest. But the difference is, oops, sorry about this. How do I get back? The interesting thing about Micron is I am short puts Micron in the money, slightly at the money, in the money. 1,000 strike price, 1 month runtime. I'm starting slow. The premiums are insane. Okay. And rather than going long on Micron, I'm going short at the money puts because you're getting a lot of free money. I'm getting $100 for free, which means it's the equivalent of Micron going to 1,100 roughly in 1 month. If Micron goes above 1,100, well, I'm losing out a little bit on not making enough money. But if it drops to 910, I still make money. So I like this whole situation. I'm going short puts in the money. And I did this significantly. I have the equivalent of more shares than of more portfolio percentage than I have Nvidia. So it's now my number 3 holding. I have a little bit of Meta. How much of Meta? It's less than Nvidia. So now I'm basically full on Tesla extreme exposure because I'm very bullish on Tesla right now. But I'm taking, I maintain my buffer so I can survive a 380, 370 drop. Wouldn't be very nice. I'd rather have it a little more contained to 390. But let's see. Then Micron. I think Micron is just crazy when you look at the valuation and price earnings. Absolutely crazy. I also have Robinhood. That's my smallest holding together with MicroStrategy, Robinhood, MicroStrategy. So that's my portfolio, but Tesla is the big needle mover. Micron can add nice alpha right now. Let's see how it goes. I have 10 SpaceX shares, my tracker shares, so basically insignificant, but they show me I like it to have it in my portfolio. I'm still short SpaceX calls. As you know, they will probably just give me the entire premium. I have a 180, I have a 180 strike price position July 24th for SpaceX. Short calls, very likely a win, even though I lightened up on them because I'm a little concerned about the short squeeze potential. Leisure Race, it says we need Sleepy Joe and Word Salad Harris back. Why is that? Leisure Real Estate wants to be more entertained, it seems. So the sentiment shift in the market is potentially real. And let me see what we have here. This is all AI related stuff. We get to this later, to the models. Do I have anything on sentiment? Sentiment. Hyperscaler forecast chart for Goldman. This is interesting. Yeah, you see this. It's just clear. You look at Jeffries, for example. Leased versus hyperscaler installed data center. Okay, leased installed capacity, hyperscaler installed capacity. So you see what's going on here. What do we have here? Installed data center capacity. No normal co-location. No, this doesn't matter. Hyperscaler CapEx estimates revising higher. Yes, of course. People are stupid about this cash flow situation. It's not about cash flows, it's about profits. Cash flows don't matter if you're in a massive build-out stage. The question is, will the profits keep flowing in over the next 5 years while it depreciates? And the answer is clearly yes. I think Goldman has better slides. Let's go to Goldman. Here is what we see. Hyperscaler CapEx. And you see, why is this important? You see 2027 expected, 2026 expected. You see the stuff is going through the roof. These are the hyperscalers: AWS, Microsoft, Google, Meta, and Oracle. And you see the biggest one is Google. You see Meta is actually also very significant. Microsoft, of course, is bigger than Google. Microsoft is the biggest, Google, then Amazon, then Meta. And what you see, okay, people say, oh, this is crazy. It's not crazy because, yeah, the cash flow takes a hit when you have that much CapEx, but not the profits. This gets distributed over 6 years, probably. Depreciation, which is totally accurate. 6 years, by the way. Michael Burry, completely wrong. I don't even know what he's talking about. You see the prices of H100 NVIDIA's going up right now. Going up. That stuff is how old? It's 6 years. It's 5 years old. I don't know how old H100s are. They are at a minimum 4 years old, and they're still going up in price, in lease price. So you can absolutely forget that this is not 6 years depreciation. And you can divide these numbers by 6 years, right? And if AWS, if you buy 200 by 6 years, at 3.5, that's 35 billion a year that actually hits their bottom line. Do they make more than 35 billion in leasing out AWS compute? Of course. Are you kidding me? This is a vastly profitable business. I don't know what's wrong with people. Business is very simple. It's very simple. It's not if your CapEx goes up and your cash flow drops. No one cares about that. What people care about are profits. And profits, if you spend 35 billion, like AWS spends 35 billion, expends 35 billion in profits kind of this year, or in 2027 projected, on this compute build out. And the question is, do they make more than 35 billion in profit from their, compute business? And the answer is, of course, yes. Are you kidding me? So just let that sink in. Just let it sink in. I think SpaceX expended, 6 billion or 7 billion. And in year one, I don't know what are the exact numbers for Colossus, 7 billion and then some more for Colossus 2. And then in year one, they already made 25 billion. So are you kidding me? They made 11 billion in additional profit. Are you kidding me? This is the most profitable build out that we have ever seen in the history of humanity. The only risk is, will that suddenly stop, right? Will it suddenly stop in 2028 or 29 and then they get hit? I mean, this is just a very dumb assumption because why would they stop? We see that in all kinds of other news that we will get into. Let's see first, before we get into that, let's see what you guys are saying. So many comments here. I sold 610 calls on Meta a while back and made some premium, but the wife is sore about the multiple 10Ks we could have made had we not. She has not spanked me for it yet. Oh, Street Cred 0. Too bad. I hope the spanking comes soon. Netty Vegan says, what price level or time frame are you looking at entering a SpaceX position? And Netty Vegan, I told everyone for SpaceX, I'm not looking at a price. I'm looking at a time. I'm looking at November. I want to see all the lockups expiring. Not all of them, but 60% of the shares are not locked up anymore by November. The selling pressure will then be over, in my opinion, and then we see a more realistic price discovery. If you had 130, that's fine. If you had 140, that's fine. If you had 100, it's fine. If you had 80, it's fine. Because you don't know where actually the market price is in. I think we have some news coming too this year for SpaceX. We will see some major announcements, in my opinion, for a new compute business for Colossus 2. That could be as much as another 10 billion in profits, maybe more. And so that's a counterbalance to the selling pressure. So we could end up the year at 140. Absolutely possible. 150. Or we could end up at 80. I don't know. So I'm looking more at the time scale, and I am ready to double down. I think SpaceX is tremendous business, but we need to keep focused on the news and understand the bigger themes around SpaceX. Space AI is coming sooner than people think, I think in 2028. But there might be a gap between the terrestrial build-out good news that is coming now that could potentially drive the stock a little bit because it's a lot of money. But then terrestrial build-out will hit a wall, in my opinion, at some point in the second half of 2027. So if we see some depression now because of the selling pressure for SpaceX, Then we see some positive momentum maybe in Q4, maybe in Q1 because of more terrestrial build out, maybe some new exuberance. And I think then we will see people getting depressed again because terrestrial build out will hit some walls, in my opinion. Policy walls, permitting walls. People get very hostile towards AI. I think 2027 will get much, much worse. And then we have that dry period between that hitting the new wall and space build out, which could lead to a significant pullback in the stock. So I think pullback now. I think SpaceX will be under tremendous pressure until end of the year or Q4. In Q4, who knows, it could bottom out and then see a new revival because of terrestrial build out. But it could also compress now. We don't know about the exact timing. What I'm saying is there's selling pressure that's downwards. There is good catalyst coming for surprise terrestrial build out, which is very significant, which will definitely drive the stock up. That's up pressure. And depending when this hits a wall, it will hit a wall. Then we get into the real game, and that's the waiting game for space AI. And that will be the next opportunity. So SpaceX is very interesting. I love the stock, but right now, more bearish than bullish. Tyler says, I love your videos, buddy. Should I hold cash to buy Tesla dips under 380 or DCA? It depends how tactically you want to trade. I would definitely have significant Tesla exposure right now because you don't know when this flip switches. And if it switches, you're missing out. And you can have some dry powder left to double down on 380, but not being in the trade is risky on a 6 month horizon. Very risky. Brooks Rossman, Joe, love how level-headed you stay. Taking notes over here. Thank you. Second question, if we hit a decent sized pullback, 15 to 20% in the S&P 500 second half of the year, what range would you expect Tesla to trade? Difficult question. It depends what happens to Tesla, obviously. It's the same with these stocks. Obviously, if you see a pullback and Tesla is in a bullish mode, it pulls back 30%, 20%. If it's in a bearish mode, it pulls back 50%. And then the next question is, when does that happen, right? If that pullback happens in October, let's say, and no one knows, right now it's probably not happening. I don't think it's happening in July. Probably not in August, would be unusual. It normally happens in September, October, maybe November. It depends from where we pull back, right? Like if we suddenly see CyberCap deployment, we go to 500, 550, and then anticipation, we see more deployment, upwards pressure, then there's a market crash. Tesla probably goes down 30% from 500, which is 350. If this is a severe pullback of 20. But if you see nothing, we hang out here at 400, people get depressed and then lose hope in CyberCap, and then we see a 20% crash. Can we go to 200? Of course. Of course. So you always have to take into consideration your beta of 2. And then bullish means less than 2. So beta of 2 means market crashes 20, Tesla crashes 40 in average. But if Tesla is a little bullish, it crashes less than its beta. If it's a little bearish, it crashes more than its beta. So it's really a sentiment question. And then, of course, all these sides of the questions, from where do we crash? Leonardo says, yes, the hyperscalers are just reinvesting profits. They are not going into debt. It's insane how the market thinks. Yes, Leonardo is 100% right. The market is retarded. I'm like Sadhguru. I hate the gurus, but sometimes I'm a guru. I like when he says the people are retarded. I'm not saying that, but I say the market is a little retarded. Tusenelda Wolfenpickel. Tusenelda Wolfenpickel. This is one of the best names I've heard so far. Joe, what would you consider the perfect confluence of Tesla factors if Providence is feeling frisky and decides to blow everyone's minds? We have to be very cautious with these things, but of course, it's very simple. If Tesla just scales CyberCap suddenly, we are going to 1,000. That's what I think. Tesla will definitely hit $1,000 per share if we suddenly see 10,000 CyberCaps. Very simple. Without even Optimus. Mark says, even my favorite Alphabet has a torrid spend. Yes, even my favorite Alphabet has a torrid spend. At least they're spending 80% on their own chips, which can do now trading inference. When it comes to the mega caps here and the hyperscalers, you guys, it's very important. The market is a little retarded. CapEx hits cash flow. Okay, if you spend, like Microsoft spends 264 billion in 2027, that hits their cash flow and they need debt. But you shouldn't think like that. You should think in EBIT, you know, operating income, EBIT, like whatever, like look at profit metrics. And the profit metrics is revenue minus COGS minus other costs minus depreciation. And if you spend 240 billion, let's say you have to divide by 6 years. I think 6 years is actually realistic. Maybe 5 years. 5 years is conservative. You get 6 years. Let's say you spend 200 billion by 5 years. Your bottom line gets hit by $40 billion. And you have to ask yourself the question, do they make more than 40 billion? Now, let that sink in. If you build out $200 billion, look at SpaceX. They built out, I don't even know what the exact spend was. I have to look into that. 20 billion or something? They spent 20 billion and they made 25 billion in a single year in revenue at a whatever margin, at a high margin. You know, I think 80, 70%. Like, think about that. These people spend 200 billion. What do you think profit they make? Over 100 billion. Over 100 billion in added profits. These people are the most disciplined finance people on earth. These companies, even though I hate some of them, but they are absolutely perfectly run. These are machines. They're not wasting money. If you spend 200 billion in CapEx, and you make 100 billion, you make 100 billion in additional margin and only have to divide this by 5 for your actual depreciation. So you make 100 billion in additional profit and subtract 40 billion in depreciation, you're making $60 billion of additional profit. That's the math here. That's why they're going all in, because it's a safe bet. The market is stupid. The market thinks, oh, but what if what if in 2029 no one wants compute anymore? Yeah, of course. But that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Robert Carter says, Joe is one of the best hunks to get AI stock info. Thank you, Robert Carter. Hunks. I love to be a hunk. Leonardo, like any great long-term investor, and as Joe has stated, Tesla rise is inevitable, just relax. If looking at the stock price daily freaks you out, then you as an investor need to change your habit. That's true. Mark says, X has 200 million daily active users. Alphabet has 10 plus 1 billion user apps and 3 plus 3 billion user apps, and they all run on TPUs. Tensor. They are the winners with no NVIDIA tax. That is true, Mark, but you are even not taking into consideration that the additional build out here also just generates additional incremental direct compute revenue, especially for AWS and Microsoft, but also for Google. So yes, they're powering and fueling their apps, and Meta is doing this, of course, a lot. But on top of it, they're probably paid just from additional revenue just for compute for that stuff. Joe, when is the merger according to the Quinn and you? Who's winning? Kramabuli. Well, I think the merger, it takes a little longer than we think. That's what I think. Marx says, I think almost all the hyperscalers paying dumb inflated price for NVIDIA equipment. CXMT and YMTC will collapse the memory bubble and quite soon. I don't know, Mark. I have my doubts. Some parts of the memory bubble, but not the most advanced HDMs and stuff like that. The most advanced AI memory the Chinese cannot do. It cannot do. The market has been cornered by SK Hynix, Samsung, and of course Micron. And Micron has a unique position because they're American. So there is no competition coming. The Chinese cannot get there. Now the Chinese can pop the other memory bubble for less advanced memory, yes, and they probably will in the next 2 years, but that doesn't hurt at all Micron and Samsung, in my opinion. Brian says, your Tesla model is understandably focused on robotaxi scaling. Does it also take Optimus into account? Yeah, my total model, yes. But for now, it's really about robotaxi. Brooks Rossman says, Joe, thank you for the insights to my earlier questions. You're a stud. Thank you. Last one, if you had 50,000 to invest into MicroStrategy on Monday versus Tesla. Ooh. Oh my, I am much more invested in Tesla. MicroStrategy is a little bit of a gamble on the same time horizon. On a 6 month horizon, MicroStrategy is just a gamble. I think it's a good gamble, more likely than not to pay off. But Tesla is just much more predictable with Robotaxi and Optimus than MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy, in the end, is a Bitcoin play, and who the hell knows what Bitcoin is going to do. So on a super strategic level, I'm bullish on Bitcoin, but on a tactical level, yeah, I'm directionally bullish over the next 6 months. I think it goes up. I think we are through the bear market at some point, and then we go up. But how sure am I? Much less sure than for Tesla. So I would put in Tesla. And that doesn't mean, I'm betting on MicroStrategy, but it's a small position. Okay. So many Tesla questions. Okay, let's continue. We have more to go through. We don't have that much time. Time is running out. Here, the next thing, huge. China is catching up extremely fast. Of course, people are mocking them as always. Don't mock China as much. I also looked into Europe, by the way, Ariane launch systems. We have to understand, we all live in a bubble. We live in the Elon and United States bubble. I give you a reality check on Europe. I give you a reality check on China. All these super advanced economies, Europe and China and the United States, okay? They're all effectively head-to-head, okay? Sure. In some areas, the United States is clearly ahead, but what does that mean? They're not a decade ahead. They're not even half a decade ahead, not even in rockets. We need to be a little realistic here. Ariane, for example, they're at $5,000 per kilogram cost. SpaceX is at a $3,500 cost. Starship, once it works, but it could take up to end of 2027 before that really works, will be maybe at $1,000 to $500 with a pathway to below $500. But this will take years and years and years, and by then the Europeans will be at $1,000 or $2,000. Now, is $100 or $200 much cheaper than $1,000 or $2,000? Yeah, but not on the trajectory. And does that mean that Elon is not a genius and without him they would all not be able to do it? Sure. I think Elon has accelerated many things by 10 or even 20 years. But after we accelerate, it doesn't mean the rest is not catching up fast. And you see it with China. China would not be able to do that, and Europe would not be able to do that if SpaceX wouldn't have done it. And this is not about stealing IP, especially not by the Europeans, but as you see, also not the Chinese. It's not about stealing IP. I have to explain something to everyone, how innovation works. The conviction around first principles and the demonstration that something works is much more important than stealing IP. It gives you confidence. Imagine you're Columbus and you sail to America. How hard is it to actually sail to America? It's not that hard. I mean, I don't want to do it back then, but it's not that hard. You know what's hard? It is hard to sail to America when you don't know there is America. When you don't know you fall off the cliff, the flat earth cliff, into the universe and die a terrible death by vacuum. Who knows? Once the first guy does it, everyone's like, dude, I can build a ship and sail there easy. Everyone knew about self-landing rockets. Everyone knew it could be done. Everyone knew it's a good idea. But no one had enough balls and conviction, and no one knew enough how possible it is and how cost-effective. The Europeans have done this for decades, and they never really, and NASA has done it for decades, they never really pushed for it because they thought, ultimately, it's not going to work economically. Okay? They were dumb. not engineering dumb, they were just conviction dumb. And Elon knew because he did the math, like, dude, no, it's going to be amazing. Now that he proved it, Europe and China can focus all energy, and Russia can focus all energies, and Iran and India can focus all energies on it, because now they don't need faith, they don't need first principles, they just see it. That means they're all catching up fast. Okay? So, same with AI. The people who invent neural nets, the people who invent the first LLMs, of course they're doing pioneering work, and if they wouldn't do it, if OpenAI wouldn't have done it, if Google wouldn't have done it, no one knows if it would have taken another 30 years. But now that they have done it, China is catching up quickly. And Europe, of course, everyone loves to bash Europe, including me. The EU sucks. They're all like insane. But let's not kid ourselves. It's still one of the most dense talent pools ever. Sure, they have capital formation problems. They have all kinds of homemade idiotic problems. But Europe can very easily and will very easily catch up to all kinds of stuff. And the same is true for China. And the same is true for some other people, by the way. Iran has surprised everyone. Russia, no one even thinks about them. They're doing all kinds of things. India at some point will get their shit together. So, you know, things are not that black and white. They're all doing stuff. Europe always catches up. China catches up, maybe even faster. All these things are happening. So here, and as I explained, because pioneers like Elon do something, make it clear, and then once it's clear, you have all the energies going there. So yeah, no monopolies for too long, not even in space. Okay, more questions. So many questions. A UK YouTuber posted a video saying China could pop the AI bubble by undercutting everything. He's quite a qualified guy and knows what he's saying. What do you think? No, Richard, I don't think so. I think China is always there to threaten us with DeepSeek. I'm using DeepSeek a lot with Draupnir at Pioneer Lands. But no, there is no AI bubble pop because the need for compute is infinite. So even if a Chinese open source model becomes more prevalent, it doesn't change a thing. Here's the thing. Even if you drop the price for intelligence by 10x or 20x, which China, China is not free. If you look at DeepSeek versus Fable even, it's like 10x or 20x cheaper. That's it. That's it. And it's dumber. You need much more compute to catch up to Fable. So effectively, maybe it's 5x cheaper, maybe it's 10x cheaper, maybe it's 20x cheaper, but a little dumber. There is no limit to the amount of compute you need. It doesn't matter which model, right? So sure, they can lower prices, they can make it free on a model level, but not on a compute level. So that's not popping the NVIDIA bubble, it's not popping the Micron bubble, and it's just creating even more value and allows even more apps to be built on Chinese models. So the Chinese can knock out maybe some companies, some individual companies. They can damage Anthropic, maybe. They can put a lot of pressure on the financials of Anthropic and OpenAI. But, if these guys build great enterprise apps, maybe not. So I think why I'm so bullish and it's not a bubble is because the underlying principle is that we are crossing the Rubicon of AGI as we speak. We're crossing that Rubicon where compute just intelligence becomes infinity demand. I see it every day. I still run into my limits all over the place, and I pay a lot of money for this stuff. Fable, Grok. I ran into Grok Imagine limits today, and I never use it. I just use it for some stuff. So I'm running into limits all day long. And if you would give me 1,000 times cheaper models, I would definitely immediately run into the same limits again every day, because I would change the agentic systems there. Okay, go all out. So I don't think so. The market will want compute, of course. The only question is, that says Mark, by the way. The only question is, will the price drop precipitously with TPUs? As I said, Mark, no. No, no, no. Yeah, of course, the price will drop, but not the spend. China just became second in the space race like nothing. Bezos just raises billions for Blue Origin. The race for space is heating up. Yes, Leonardo, and I did research on the Europeans because Bundeswehr, the Germans, they have now a $30 billion launch budget and satellite budget for their own. I was first laughing about it because I'm also brainwashed by by ourselves, how we mock the Europeans all day long. But the Bundeswehr is now spending $30 billion on satellites to create a hyper constellation of spy satellites, German spy satellites. And I thought, like, are you kidding me? Are you stupid? Like, how are you going to do it? They have pretty serious stuff. There's like a new ESA as a new launch rocket company in Munich that's actually doing pretty well. The conventional big thing, Ariane, in Europe is actually more effective than I thought. They are now doing a re-landing by 2028, very likely. China already did it, but China is also boasting a little bit more and showing off their shit, and that's like Europeans don't do that. So, you know, it's very important. I mean, I love America. I love that everyone's like boasting about all kinds of stuff all day long, and the propaganda machine is unrivaled. How can you not love it? But it's also a distortion bubble. It's not that Europe doesn't have tremendous talent. It's not that, and extreme amounts of money. It's the same like military spending. Oh, here's the United States and here's the number two. It's like, yeah, add up European military spending and you will be pretty shocked. It's actually an insane amount of money. So, yeah. So all of these things are happening. And these strategic players, Europe, US, China, Russia, India is still a little weak. And as I said, Iran, look at freaking Iran with embargoes and everything. So don't underestimate people. Everyone is doing stuff. Everyone is watching the other people and actually work on stuff. Not to detract from the fact that the United States is right now the pioneering nation. The United States has the entrepreneurs, not many, by the way. It's a handful. You know who they are. And a second tier bunch, which is great. And they're pushing it, but the rest is catching up. So, okay, SpaceX generally the gem. Yes. Chris says, Joe, can you speak to this SS our M mod people seem to have on the sour mood. Chris is always like Wurstfinger typing. Tesla right now, we are on the cusp of great things here after all. Yes, of course, they're like, whatever, sour mood of Tesla. Leonardo says, yet SpaceX is years ahead. Yeah, SpaceX is for sure years ahead. I'm saying it's not decades ahead. SpaceX is probably 5 years ahead with size, scale, everything, maybe 3 years. But we also have to understand, what does it mean to be ahead? It's not that decisive as it seems. It means you can launch stuff at the margin probably 3-4 times cheaper, which is significant, but it's not like, crazy. So, and everything is changing in real time. Question, is the video even real because the engine premature shut off and some videos were questionable? Who knows, but it all makes a lot of sense. I first thought it's AI, this Chinese thing. Kelquist, EU so far behind you to woke politicians. Obviously the EU is a shit show, obviously, but also the talent pool and the money pool and the technology pool of the European Union, of the combined Europeans, is absolutely enormous. It's just completely mismanaged. But that doesn't mean there is nothing. Same with military, right? The European Union has actually very significant military stuff. It's just not streamlined, it's not aligned, it's not effective, but it could be made effective very quickly because the base is very high. Same with space technology. The European Union has very powerful space technology. What they are lacking is focus and effectiveness, big picture. But often that is less important because it can be dialed up very quickly. What's more important is the base, and the industrial base and the space base and the military base is very large in Europe. The AI intellectual base is also large. They just don't have data centers for some reason. What do you mean short puts? Do you mean selling puts or buying puts? No, short puts means selling puts if you're long biased. Mark says the best current example of multi-level strength of SpaceX is China beat SpaceX to Methalox, but Tesla quickly caught up and surpassed. Tesla iteration is amazing even when behind briefly. Yes. I personally think China has massive energy for AI models and inferencing. Yes, they have a lot of energy. I mean, literally energy. F the CCP, infinite hope. Yeah, but we need to be smart here, infinite hope. I have infinite hope. We need to be smart. There is ethical judgment, same with Iran or Russia, whatever. And there is cold-blooded analytical assessment of capabilities. China has tremendous capabilities. They know how to deploy it. Europe, you might hate the wokeness, but they have great capabilities. Russia has always surprise capabilities. Iran has very surprise capabilities. You might hate them, but you have to separate this out. You analyze what is going on, what's the capability, and then you can judge and make up your mind if you want to help them, work with them, deal with them, or make them enemies. That's completely different from assessing capability. It's very important. Well, Germans are the original rocketeers, so it makes sense they start investing. Well, let's not talk about that. We all know the story, how the man got to the moon. Wernher von Braun. Long story, look it up. Let's say Werner, the guy who led the NASA space mission and got America to the moon, was Man of the Year on Time magazine. Let's say his previous employer, how do you say that? The previous employer would not have passed the wokeness test. So, yes, there's a long story to rocketry and who invented it and why and how. Leonardo, if China video is fake, that only hurts China because they don't have a reusable rocket. That's true. All competition with China's efficiency of capital. China will launch 1,000 ocean-going vessels, while US will launch 5 this year. Naval spending exceeds China. This is the root challenge. Yes, Mark, but that's not true for SpaceX. The US is definitely an efficiency problem versus China. But then China is also overrated because sometimes they, they're still behind. So next, let's go into the final stretch of this update. We have, of course, the final stretch with 3 crazy news. The first one is Grok 4.5 just dropped, and I told everyone this is a revolution. Cursor paying off totally. As I predicted 3 months ago, Cursor is a very big deal. Absolutely destroyed the field on Cursor Bench. Massively cheaper than Fable at similar performance, at least Cursor Bench. Of course, we have to be cautious. Grok 4.5 is not Fable, but it had surprising strengths in some of the benchmarks. It's XAI biggest leaps to date, thanks to the Cursor team. The Cursor team made the difference, as I explained many times before. They have the best harness in the world, the best enterprise solution in the world, but they were totally subpar. They didn't even have their own LLM. Now they are married to the most powerful compute company, which is SpaceX, with the best, harness. And so now they're getting very, very serious. I think they have a good shot. And at the core of this whole thing, believe me, it is Elon's competence and Elon's team's competence to build out these massive Colossus things. So they're best in the world in building things out, these mega compute clusters. Combined with now the other side, the founder of Cursor Bench, this young 25-year-old dude who's just very smart. I love these young guys who are just very smart. And he understands what Elon couldn't fix before. He understands harness. He understands enterprise. He understands product better than anyone else. And Anthropic had the strength before that they had their own LLM and they had the best team on that side, the second best team, but they had both in-house. And that's why they will become the leader. But now SpaceX has both in-house and has both better than Anthropic. So I think this race is going to be hot. Then we had this Muse Spark. And I know everyone's laughing at Zuck. Everyone is laughing at, here's the thing. I have, if you have Elon plus Cursor, that's a killer team. If you have Sam Altman, long story. Many people don't like him. Now also Jason Calacanis said very bad things about Sam. You know the whole drama that Elon said very bad things about him. People really hate Sam Altman. A lot of people who work very closely with Sam Altman hate him and say that he's lying, he's stealing. I don't know. I met Sam a few times, by the way, but just very briefly. And, I have some opinions, but they're not really grounded in anything. So I'm not going to voice my opinions here. They're not founded in anything. But based on what other people say, yeah, there's a little bit of concern, right? Because Jason and Elon, they don't have much in common. They're totally different angles on Sam. Now Apple is suing them, and they have some very bad stories about it. So yeah, I don't know. When it comes to Zuck, people also hate Zuck, of course. But I don't know. Zuck always was a smart cookie. Zuck always had conviction in AI. I also liked his conviction, his dumb, stupid metaverse, which was extremely dumb. But I like that he had this conviction. I don't know. I like conviction, And now he has conviction on AI, and he has a very strategic and systematic approach. Jan LeCun, the previous guy, was just the dumbest dude in AI. I don't understand how, that was really dumb. But now Alexander Wang is extremely smart. He is a very smart cookie. I saw it right away. He built Scale. He's also a young dude, very similar to the Cursor founder, by the way, very similar type in a way. I have high trust in Alexander Wang to be a very smart and ambitious cookie. And he's in charge now. And now you have Muse Spark. Now you will see they do magic things in video. Is it as good as Grok? No. Is it as good as Fable? No. Is it as good as Sol? No. But he started from a very bad position of the dumb little Jan LeCun. And so now I would watch Meta. I am very bullish on Meta. That's why I initiated a little position, even though it ran up a lot. But I mean, it has a lot to run. It's at 17 price earnings forward. So Meta is a very powerful core business. And I know no one likes them. But I tell you, if you let me choose between OpenAI, who probably do a pretty good job on the product side, but just from a liking perspective, OpenAI versus Meta, I like Meta as a little underdog. Because I like Alexander Wang. I think he's smart. So, and by the way, he acquired them for 15 billion acqui-hire, Alexander Wang and Scale, Zuck. Just yesterday, or whatever, Friday, this thing went up 75 billion in one trading session just because of them. So that tells you how smart it is to hire smart people, even if it costs you 15 billion. So if you have 15 billion lying around, just buy someone who's smart. So, and then finally, OpenAI dropped the GPT 5.6 family. Here's the thing. Everyone also hates OpenAI. I get it. You know what? I don't care. Our main go-to in Draupnir, Pioneer Lands, right, in our agentic system out of the box, by the way, you can use it, very cool, is DeepSeek, because DeepSeek has the best price-power ratio. But I'm personally using now constantly Claude Design is the best. I use Grok, like for design. I use Grok a lot, but I use equally to Grok, I use ChatGPT. I think they go very well together. I use them all for different things. So I'm very happy this is all happening, and we see a tremendous week in AI. People do not understand what's happening here. This is a very, very big deal. We are launching frontier models like it was nothing. Very, very huge. Let's see. Let's wrap it up. Operation Paperclip, Mark. Exactly. They didn't talk about it when they made Werner von Braun Time Man of the Year. No word of Operation Paperclip. There was stuff going on. Joe, just if your last video on AI Max 7, the audio sounded like you were behind a jet engine. Interesting. Don't forget that AOC anti-billionaires. I wonder what happened to all billionaires in US if Democrats take over US. They may bring their business out of US and into Asia. Yvonne Choi. Yeah, I mean, well, it's 2026. I think the midterms don't matter that much. I think the Republicans are going to protect and keep the Senate unless Trump does some more dumb stuff in Iran, but I don't think so. So I think Democrats take over the House, Republicans keep the Senate, so nothing will happen really. The big question is 2028, and I do think we can't even think that far ahead, but I think we are entering an insane time of turmoil. That's why I'm working day and night on the Pioneer Academy and Pioneer Lands, by the way. We are always delayed, but we are nearly, I hope we launch the Pioneer Academy, which will be a massive relaunch in July. Because I genuinely think shit is going to hit the fan. Because people do not understand where AI is. Like all that stuff we discussed today and we keep discussing here, the elimination of white collar jobs and everything else will be absolutely insane next year. Everyone is gaslighting everyone. This will be a shit show of unprecedented proportions, and it's already hitting a lot of people. And the United States unemployment number, by the way, is the dumbest, stupid metric I've ever seen, because it will always stay at 4%. If all Americans lose their jobs and no one will ever get hired again, the unemployment rate will still be 4%, because it is measured in the dumbest possible way. As long as you live and don't starve to death, you are employed, just so you understand. If you get kicked out of your job and you're starving to death and you go to your neighbor and say, can I clip your grass for 1 second and you pay me $1? If you do that, you're employed. So this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. This is the most gaslighting number ever. This number tells you exactly nothing, and the unemployment rate will stay at 4% in eternity, because it's simply not possible to go up, even if everyone would lose their job. So we don't know what's really going on. We just know anecdotally that a lot of people are unhappy. Everyone under 30 lives with their parents. I wonder why. It's just stupid. So people are extremely angry. They're getting more and more angry. But everyone who's not angry is getting rich and thinks it's all fine and we are all living in bubbles. That's the problem. But when it comes to elections, we will see what happens. And if too many people are unhappy, they are becoming socialists. And so 2028 is a huge risk. I think it's so much bigger than people understand. Look at Mandavi. What's his name? I don't even want to remember his name. The dude in New York. You know, don't be emotional about it. Just think about it. What happened there? This is serious business. Many companies have left California because of the anti-billionaires. Yeah, but guys, I mean, it's time to do something, by the way. That's why we are relaunching the Pioneer Academy to actually become the engine of change. Because, I mean, most of you guys are watching from America, some Australia. I am just watching what's going on in Europe. And Germany is probably one of the most active, Germany and the UK are the most actively like naming the problem. Like they have a lot of alternative media, especially Germany. It's actually impressive. There's lots of stuff happening. But the central difference to the United States is that everyone's just talking. Everyone's just complaining. There are millions of people who understand everything, right? All these things we are discussing, but they're not taking action. So it's time that we take some action, because shit will hit the fan. In the US first, probably. But who knows? This is not under control, the whole thing. I'm just saying. US energy infra is way behind. That is totally correct. But the hardware tech is NVIDIA, yes. Meta is very powerful, yes, Sean. People underestimate Meta. I don't know why. Everyone's like, yeah, Meta, losers, stupid, Zuck, we hate them. They can do nothing. No. You will see. They are underrated. Jan LeCun is right, but his concerns are 2 years out, beyond the current corporate and venture capital time horizon. Street cred 0. Well, it's like the Bears. They're always right at some point in time, but that makes them wrong effectively. He's totally wrong, Jan LeCun, because it doesn't matter if you say, oh, in theory, the LLMs are not intelligent. Like, whatever. Dude, what are you talking about? No one cares. We are making trillions of dollars and you don't because you missed the train. Okay. He's too theoretic. Ken says, Starship deploying 20 V3 Starlink satellites Thursday won't boost the stock? Absolutely not. No one cares. Starlink is totally priced in, doesn't move the needle. It brings an 80% growth for the Starlink revenue, but this is, look at the valuation, it's too much of a disconnect. Colossus moves the needle much more. Meta wisely bought TPU from GCP to control costs. Exactly. Joe, being out of Tesla until scaling begins, is it really risky? Yes, young dude 80, because you don't know when scaling begins. That's the problem. You're missing out on a 20% move that can happen anytime. And I mean, it depends on your proclivities, right? You can try to trade this, but I don't. I definitely want to be in there, and I'm trading around the core position. You know, you don't have to think just in black and white. You can think, I want to be in with the core position, because you always have to humble yourself in terms of what can you predict. I'm humbling myself. Like, it's not black or white. It's called risk management in all directions. There is a risk you're missing out on major moves in Tesla. And you can mitigate this risk by having continuous exposure that you don't touch. If you then want to be smart on top of it, you can trade around that core position. You have two positions, one on and off position and one continuous position. It sounds a little dumb, but it's not dumb, because you can't really predict the future. You can just approximate it. Hey, it's Anthony says, someone explain why Meta is a good company. They seem to invest in only things that are going nowhere. Well, no. It's like Google. They're also failures in a way, but look at the financials. They are just doing that because they can, because they're driving a tremendous core business. They acquired WhatsApp. They acquired all kinds of things that were very successful. And so don't just look at the losers, look also at the winners. And the AI is a high conviction bet. And this time it's the right bet. And why I'm so bullish on it is because of Alexander Wang. You know, I look at people and I quickly make up my mind. I tend to be always right on people when I'm bullish on the people. I never was wrong in my life and I'm bullish on someone. I'm not always right when I don't like someone, because I can't, my ability to differentiate between I hate this person because he's a douchebag or he's annoying or he's a liar versus this guy is incompetent, I'm not so good in differentiating that. And it's correlated, but not completely. I mean, there are people like the Nikola guy where I knew he's a total fraud. But for example, the Figure One CEO, I don't know, really don't like him. But is that because the way he talks and stuff, or is he truly incompetent? Could be, could also not be. So if I'm very not liking there are also people I don't like. I don't want to name any names. There are definitely people I don't like where I'm highly convinced they're very competent and they will succeed financially. So that's a category. I'm good in calling out competence. I'm not so good in calling out incompetence. So sometimes I really don't like people or call them bad when they still succeed after I call them that. So don't listen to me when I don't like someone, but listen to me when I like someone. Mark says, I worked in Huntsville in my early engineering career, concerts at Von Braun Center. Nice. I'm a big Von Braun fan, but yeah, there were like some problems in the past. Elon's master plan, let AI and robots handle Earth, humans venture into space and beyond. Well, I still want to have a house on Earth, by the way. I like Earth, some places. Leonardo says, people like to be ignorant because it's bliss to them. but they will get a rude awakening. Life is the ability to adapt to drastic change and predict drastic change, Leonardo, exactly. Young Dude 80 says, Joe, previously you said discounted cash flow matters, which I agree. Now you say profit. Long run, they're roughly the same, but I think DCF is the right metric and spend now. Well, DCF, but Young Dude, DCF is different from cash flow in like today, right? Because DCF approximates profit long term, right? Because these depreciations make sense in the long term if you look at 10 years. What is very dumb of people, if there's CapEx jumping up a lot, like right now, that's upfront CapEx before the margins come in, the cash flow comes in, and that drops short-term cash flow, like this year, dramatically, okay? And that is very dumb. So DCF, it's very different from cash flow. Cash flow means this year cash flow, and that gets totally distorted if CapEx goes up. DCF looks forward at infinitum, and then that is why it's smart. Mark, really enjoyed your report today, Joe. Best. Thank you, Mark. By the way, I'm designing this thing. This is Claude Design, and I'm like working on something, so I hope this gets better over time. But yeah, I like it. Meta is powerful because they own a lot of social media platforms. User base is huge. Yes. Yvonne Choi. Yes, I encountered rent freeze in New York for 3 years with no real rental income, but still need to pay mortgage. I'm very happy I finally sold my property in Y and left. Good to know, Yvonne. I think you can't handle leftists. They are insane. They're going to destroy everything. California, New York. And they are like trapped. They're not going to get out of their thing. Jeff Liu says, we'll be lucky if you have 1,000 unsupervised robotaxis by end of this year. Well, the funny thing is the difference between 1,000 and 10,000 is very marginal when you think about it. If you get to 1,000, we quickly get to 10,000. So yeah, let's see. When does the car apocalypse happen, when people panic sell their non-self-driving cars? I say sometime 2027. Yes, Marty Party. I had like a video long time ago, like over a year ago, where I said what is it? Carpocalypse. Carpocalypse. That's how they call it in LA. They closed the 405. Side story, but they closed the 405 for some construction work. The 405, the worst highway in America, the 405 between Westwood and Santa Monica, they closed it. Fun story. And LA had like warning radio and TV specials for 6 months because they're LA Angelinos. For 6 months, it was like the biggest event of the year. It's like in 6 months, they're going to close the highway for like, I don't even know, for a week or 5 days. For 6 months, it was talk of town, and everyone left the city. Everyone literally thought the world is going to end. And if you were in LA, you understand why. And they call it carpocalypse. Carpocalypse was ingenious. And then, of course, not much happened because everyone was prepared and left town. So 2027, yes, it might be the end of these OEMs. Which one is better value now, Tesla or SpaceX? Absolutely Tesla right now, in my opinion. You sense on people, what about highly intelligent, capable liar douchebags? Highly intelligent, capable liar douchebags. Let me think. Well, I shouldn't name names, but I don't like them. Because why I don't like them also as an investment, first of all, ethically, I don't like it. And I always think, what if the world catches up with them? They get destroyed, right? They will have a problem. Also, what if they cheat and do something criminal? So it's very different from dumb liar douchebags, but highly intelligent, capable douchebags. It's very simple. I don't invest in these companies, but I'm fully aware that they might succeed. Ken says, I don't like anyone. There you have it. Boom. Can't go wrong with that. Sam Altman being sued, ChatGPT by Apple for theft. Yes. Where's my Apple chart? I had this too. The left is a negative force. Yes. Grok having some control of the car could be amazing. Well, not too much control. 4 or 5 Gs, what a shit show. The 110 will take all the traffic. Well, but you can't get out. That's the problem. You're trapped. Well, I mean, the 10, even though if you go to Pacific Highway on the 110, on the 10, the 110, yeah. But if the 405 is closed, you have a big problem. You have to go 10 and Pacific Highway or go through hell in the other direction. It's just bad. Hey, it's Anthony says, Joe, do you agree with the slow initial scaling of robotaxi in a way is a huge gift for us high conviction investors since the method Tesla is using seems to be stripping the risk? Yes, I mean, they have no choice. They have to do it this way. It's fine with me. What does the Anhalt in Saxony-Anhalt mean? Also Lindsey Graham. Yeah, Lindsey Graham. Okay, we'll wrap up with that. What does Anhalt mean? I was like always, let's Google this in live. You can watch me do live research about Germany. So what does Anhalt actually, I know what Anhalt means, but it makes no sense. Anhalt in Sachsen-Anhalt meaning and Ursprung. Let's see, because I actually don't know. Anhalt refers to a historic region and former sovereign state in central Germany that makes up the eastern central part. Okay, great. So it doesn't mean anything. Anhalt Castle. A now ruined medieval fortification built around 1100 near the modern town of Harzgerode. The House of Ascania, Count Otto von Ballenstedt of the House of Ascania. It sounds like a Lord of the Rings. Constructed the fortress, making it the ancestral seat of one of the most powerful and influential dynasties in German history. House of Ascania. Wow. From castle to principality in 1212. Can you Americans even imagine? In 1212, there wasn't even Indians in America, probably. No one even knows. In 1212, not 1211, not 1213, in 1212, Count Heinrich I, Henry I, Otto's grandson, whoa, Otto was important, split the territory from the Duchy of Saxony, officially and establishing the Principality of Anhalt and adopting the title Prince of Anhalt. Throughout the Middle Ages and into the early modern era, Anhalt was highly fragmented, dividing into several semi-independent principalities ruled by different branches of Ascanians, such as Anhalt-Dessau, Anhalt-Köthen, and Anhalt-Zerbst. Catherine the Great, Russia, born in the region, famously hailed from the house of Anhalt-Zerbst. Wow, did you know? So Anhalt was this medieval thing, and it actually spawned Catherine the Great, who went on to become the Empress of Russia. That's pretty impressive. There you have it. Lindsey Graham, I think something's going on. If you're Lindsey Graham, you don't randomly die. We probably get peace in Russia or something now. They could remake Escape from LA with a shutdown of 405. Yeah, Snake is nothing against that. That's like horrible. What I'm sensing about Grok loves to have strong effect and more than just a little much. Grok has a serious will to power. I hope not. Do you think that next week's stock market won't be affected by Iran war being escalated? Iran war doesn't escalate. It just goes back and it's like everyone gets bored by that. It's probably over by tomorrow. Native Americans have been in North America for much longer than the 1200s, probably millennia before that. Well, no one knows Street Cat Zero. Sure, they walked through the Bering Sea when it was frozen, which was in 10,000 BC. But they were not like Apaches or something. They were like they were like cavemen. If you're going to 600 plus, when cybercaps actually start scaling versus risk of going to 300, 250 until then, is it really that risky to miss a tiny upside? I mean, difficult to time. That's the problem. You know, if it goes to 600, who cares if you go to 300 in between? Also, we don't know if it goes to 300. Only if we have a correction in the market and we didn't go up. Marty Party says 1212 is pre-Big Bang. Yes, the Big Bang was in 1492 October when Columbus found America. What was it, the 13th of October? 1492. I don't know why I can remember this. This is the Columbus Day. Was it 13th of October? I forgot. So that is it for now. That was the news for today. Interesting weeks ahead. The bottom line here is, dudes, AI is coming outside the Tesla situation. What we saw this week in AI is game changing. It is a confidence booster for everyone who is in the AI trade at large, and very big things are happening. You know, do you have a schedule for your live presentations, Chrissy? Every Sunday around 7, sometimes I'm late today, I was traveling, came back. Every Sunday around 7 or 8, whatever this time here is, European, Middle European time, which is I always forget, it's 10 a.m. Pacific time. I only know Pacific time and Central Middle European, German, Swedish, French time. So normally 7 p.m. on Sundays for the Europeans, 10 a.m. Sunday for the Californians, something in between for everyone in between, and the Australians, I can never do the math. This is too complicated. I think 15 hours ahead of the Californians, something like that, but I'm not sure. 15 hours? No, that's Thailand. The Australians are like 100 hours ahead. Chris Giddy is in Silicon Valley. That is the same as California. Native American cultures probably had longevities in the hundreds of years. I don't know if that's true, Street Cat. That would be impressive. It's starting, maybe they had like a stem cell therapy. It's starting to feel like Tesla's waiting for FSD version 15. I don't think so. Okay, guys, let's wrap it up. It was a pleasure as always. We will have this new format. I hope you like it. I'm working on the details here, but this is my new format. It's automated to some extent. We will improve it over time, make it look a little more pretty to ramp up the production value. I just have to figure out how to make it look like, not like a square. Oh, not the cultures. I was like, what is Street Cat Zero talking about? Hundreds of years stem cell therapy? The cultures, of course. Yes. The cultures are very ancient. Okay, guys, that's it. Thanks for attending, and more news to come. We live in amazing and insane times. We watch AI evolving. Maybe we need some more political commentary, because I think the big risk for all of us is we're in this bubble. We are investors. We benefit from this whole thing. Don't forget that the vast majority of people has no clue, is left behind, is getting fired, is losing their jobs while prices go through the roof, while the top 10% get very rich, the top 1% get insanely rich, and the top 10 people become trillionaires. This is not sustainable. It's going to be a problem, and we better look ahead and understand all of this while we are learning how to use all these super tools. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you so much for being here, and have a great week. See you tomorrow.